Hi, everyone. I am Deb Blum, and this is the Inside Out Activism Show. And I'm so excited to welcome Beth Rowles today on our show. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Deb.
So, Beth was
Hi.
actually on the sibling rivalry panel a couple of weeks ago. And so, a two-time guest. But at the time, we didn't actually get a chance to have you do a real intro. So, maybe you can tell us a little bit about you, but not yet, because I want to say a couple things first. Beth actually made my website, my beautiful, amazing website at debblum.com. Beth made that. She's just so great. And I just want to say I've had a lot of fun working with you. It's been such a great experience. And that you are so much more than a website creator. You helped me with my brand, and you've helped me to keep a cohesive message, and you've helped me to grapple with who I am and what I'm bringing out into the world. And you are the reason why my Inside Out Activism logo has like the cool thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! I
Yeah.
loved it. And it was like when you did that, you're like, I'm not a logo creator. And then when we went back and forth and you did that one, I was like, that's the one. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been great. So Beth has been along the journey with me as I've launched my website, my new sort of brand, etc., as well as this YouTube channel.
Yes. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
I just love you, and I had so much fun working with you. We're a lot alike, but you are so brilliant at seeing the big picture and seeing everything. So I'm humbly here to speak a little bit. I help people like you understand themselves for their brand or for their parenting or for their marriage, to shut off that critical inner voice and really work from their intuition. And I've just had so much fun co-creating that with you. It was really, really exciting to get you to own all of your gifts and come out here. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Likewise. And that is something that I think you're good at, is really helping people to step into the more, I guess, fully expressed version of themselves,
Yeah.
So that's been great. And today, so what happened was a couple of days ago, Beth did a Facebook Live, and it was about the Cartman, I think it's by Steve Cartman,
I think
the
so.
Cartman Drama Triangle. And I loved it. And I have very much been a fan of the drama triangle and understanding the drama triangle for many, many years. And I loved that you were doing it. And I said, Beth, let's talk about it on my show. And so we said, let's just jump on and we'll do it. So would you like to give the description that you gave in
Sure.
your little lesson?
Sure. And I drew a little picture. It's still sort of sort of here. Maybe people can see it, maybe they can't. But so he's a psychologist, I think, and he came up with this, and it was to help us understand, like, when we step into a role and why we do it, but to recognize that we're inside of this role, and it creates drama as soon as we not only take our role, but we assign a different role to others. So there's three things you can be, and you can be all of them. The victim, who thinks life is happening to them, the villain, who's blaming others and is also the, oh gosh, I always get this wrong, persecutor, is that right?
Yep.
Says they're right, I'm right, you're wrong. So that's the villain. And then the hero, or the rescuer, which I know I was, and so many women, their default is to go to the hero rescuer, who basically is saying, like, need me, I'll help you so that you need me more, and I'm going to be good, and I don't want anybody to feel pain, so I'm going to help you out, and we're both going to not feel pain together. So
Yes.
yeah, that's the
Yeah. Thank you.
basic gist of it.
Yeah, and it seems like in my own personal experience that I have noticed that when I drop into a role, somehow it seems like all of a sudden there are people around me that are in the other roles, right? Like, so
Mhm.
you said that it's like, so if I am in the rescuer role, it seems like I attract more people who are victims who maybe they act like they need more help, and I'm the one that comes in and I'm the one that's going to help and to fix. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And then that makes you feel so good because all these people depend on you. and and you need people to keep having problems to keep making you feel important so that you can continue to rescue.
Yeah.
And that just made me think of a dynamic I had. I talk about marriage because I changed my marriage. I know you did something very similar. And one of the roles that I played was I'd fix anytime he had a problem and was constantly just resolving it for him. And part of my journey, what I write about in my book, The Authentic Wife, was that I stopped fixing and started holding more boundaries. And that was very disconcerting for him to suddenly have me stop fixing things. But I had to do that. And it also prepared me for parenting, to be ready to not fix everything for my kids. They wouldn't always depend on me. And I think it's so easy to want to be that mother and be the rescuer and be the hero, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Because that is the role, right? It's rescuer, hero. Yeah. And it seems so loving.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the place of, I think, often having a big heart and thinking of ourselves as helpers. And we try so hard to be that generous person. But in some ways, we end up, well, so two things. For one, we end up making some people feel like then they aren't capable, maybe like making them feel like they're a child, like
Yeah.
husbands and children who really want to be like growing up. We sometimes keep them, keep them immature, or we keep them needing us because like, we have the answers, we have the
Yeah.
good advice. But the other thing too is that, so from what I understand from the drama triangle, is that it's got these 3 points. And what happens is as soon as you go into any one of these roles, you are immediately dropped into drama. And you now are creating this, this, it's like no matter what your intentions are, no matter how loving you are, no matter how much you believe your Mother Teresa and you're not doing anything to harm, it's still creating drama.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
still creating drama. So what is the alternative to it?
The alternative, I think, is just not stepping into those roles to begin with. So as soon as something happens, instead of creating a story and like making sense of the situation by assigning these different roles, we're just completely present to what is the problem? Let's work together because we're equal and find a solution. Or let's set a boundary and walk away. And then do you want me to go through stepping out of the roles or
Oh
starting?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
because that's like how we work it in the moment, but we have kind of our default, I've heard it called our starting gate role. And so we just talked about women are the hero and rescuer. So to move out of that, we become more of a teacher or a coach, and we're helping them to understand that they have the power to solve their own problems. And then the villain, who's like mad and right and blaming people, becomes more of a challenger and sets really good boundaries, encourages others to hold their boundaries, and also speaks their needs. Because I think when women turn to the villain, it's usually because we aren't actually speaking what we're feeling and needing. And then everybody's creating more work for us, such as like in the house. And then we get really mad. And then we're like on a mission and kind of saying, if you would just fix what you're doing, then I would be happy.
Well,
Kind of.
don't we become a victim? Isn't that
We
kind of what
become,
it is?
I
We
think
become
we'd
a
be
victim.
both. So like I go to victim first. I'm like, all these people, I had to do everything myself. But then I turn into kind of the villain and start really just being angry kind of thing.
Mm,
I feel that's more like the villain because then I'm blaming everybody for my unhappiness.
mm.
That's your fault that I'm this way, instead of me actually taking responsibility and saying, hey, I need help. I can't do this all by myself. Could you guys help me out with this? So then the victim is life is happening to me. This is my favorite one. And this is the one that I get kind of like upset about when people say they're a victim, because I feel there are not that many victims really in the world. It's clear who's a victim. When we think in our families that we're a victim all the time, I don't think that's true. but we want to become creators and think about, what do we want? What do we want to create in this moment? What kind of life do we want to have? What do we already have that we're grateful for? And really just step into our own power.
And the trick is, is to get out of the place of thinking that that's the only way we can navigate is in one of those three roles.
Absolutely. I know you know a ton about this and could probably speak to it better than me, but it's really our ego defense mechanism, as you call it, trying to build us up and make sure we still feel good. So it's so much easier for it to say, oh, he should not have done that to me, and I'm a victim, and get on the defensive and really see like this epic battle starting to happen that we need to put up all our defenses and fight, instead of going, oh my God, he needs something, I need something, we both need to communicate what we need, instead of being so defensive and trying to be right and better and puff up our chest and put other people down to make us feel good, or whatever it is that we try to do.
Yeah, it seems like right now in the world, it's just playing out so profoundly, just even if you don't take a specific example, it's happening on almost every level, almost every political issue. You can see it where somebody is trying to find someone to blame, that there's some story about either someone or themselves are a victim. There's someone who is coming in trying to save the day. And then another group of people look at that hero and they turn around and they say, no, he's not a hero. He's a persecutor. He's a villain. And then everyone's like, wait, where's the villain? Wait, right? And it's like, wait, what about if we do get out of that whole story?
Mm-hmm.
What about if we get out of that whole story and we have to, I guess it's like dropping into presence, dropping into ourselves, dropping into being an independent thinker. And I think for a lot of people, there's a question of like, well, I know for me, there was always the question of like, but I don't really get how to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, so when I think of like moving into presence, I've heard teachers talk like, this is the only thing you have to do is just get on the breath and accept the situation, and like that's good enough. You're not reactive. That does take you out of it. But my experience has been that I couldn't actually remove the conflict from my relationship until I went fully learn how to be empathetic and get completely into what they were experiencing in that moment. Like, can I talk about what happened to George Floyd for a minute? Do you mind if I do?
100%. Please do.
Because so this is horrible and tragic, and I'm just angry and so sad that it happened. But because of the knowledge and experience that I have, I couldn't help but watch a situation and think about what was going on in everybody's minds at that moment. And the cop that murdered him was hearing from these bystanders so much, and I could just almost sense him moving deeper into the drama triangle and being so afraid to just get off, because then it would look like he was wrong. His ego was like, to me, was so fragile in that moment that I feel like he felt like he didn't have a choice but to protect it, you know? And the people who are there, of course, angry, and they felt like they had no choice but to speak, because they would be shot if they did nothing else. And it's just a really awful, horrible example of how we get sucked into this, and our egos put us in these awful situations because we can't even step out of what we're experiencing and into what the other person is experiencing. He was so in his ego that he couldn't even pay attention to what he was doing. Maybe, I don't know for sure, but I see that happen to obviously a lesser degree all the time, where people like firm up in their fight, never consider what the other person is going through, because they're just so protective of what they're going through in that moment. And
Yeah, I think you hit that right on the head. I think that's what it is. It's really dropping into empathy, dropping the defensiveness, and then dropping into empathy, which is empathy for ourselves and empathy for other people, like the compassion for ourselves in situations. Like
Yeah.
if that cop had done some of his inner work and
Mhm.
done some trauma healing, he would in the moment be able to know what he was doing was wrong and be able to go beyond the drama triangle, beyond the ego, because that's really all the drama triangle is really,
Mhm.
is being deeply entrenched into our ego. Which,
Yes.
by the way, I know, Beth, you and I both agree. It's not like the ego is a bad thing. The ego is a part of our psychology, part of who we are. It's a healthy thing. It's just that when the ego's in the driver's seat, and the ego is almost like the only thing that's in control, that's where we get into trouble. And the drama triangle is really all about ego, protecting ourselves, defending ourselves. And the other thing that's fascinating about the drama triangle is that you can be in different places in the drama triangle in the same conversation. You can
Yeah.
literally move from place to place in the conversation. So what I hear you saying, though, is that if we drop out of ego and we drop into compassion, we drop into empathy, we start to see the other person's perspective. We get out of this idea that I need to make you wrong,
Mhm.
or that I need to fix you, or that I need to be, or I guess it's I need to fix you, or that I need to be fixed, or I need to be taken care of. And we come into this place of like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on for everyone here? And that's what you talked about before, where you kind of come in as equals, right? And you start to think, oh, what do you need? What do I need? Where are both of us? What are both of us feeling right now? Yeah. And I see a lot of people, I'm sure you do too, parents that are stuck in the drama triangle.
Oh yeah. For sure. It's easy to get in a power struggle with a kid much more than anybody else because they don't ever, until they're older, push back. And you probably have ones who push back now and can call you out on it, but um, mine are not there yet.
Yeah. Well, all right. So you just brought up several different things. First of all, fascinating. Yes. I mean, one of the things that happens though is that with parents is that it's built in that there's hierarchy, and we can either use that hierarchy for growth or we can use it for powering over them.
Mhm.
And we have to make that choice all the time. We have to basically, I know for me, like there's an impulse to believe that I know more, which because partially we do know more in some instances. We do have context and we have life experience that we bring, but we can sometimes abuse that and come in this more overpowering place with our kids.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's one thing, is it's just set up. It's kind of set up that we can come in and we have to hero them, or we sometimes persecute and villainize them,
Mhm.
or we feel like a victim to them,
Yeah.
right? Like the kids
That's what I
when
was thinking. Like with my little kids, I usually feel like kind of the victim, like, oh my God, not again. Or why'd you make this mess again? I got to clean it up again. But yeah. But what you just said is key because I had somebody ask me about the power over model the other day when I shared that, like, if we don't change that model, we're going to continue to see what's happening right now because we condition our children to expect power struggles. And they felt like the victim to us for so long that then when they're adults, they're seeking power. They're like, you know, it becomes this frenzy of trying to claim the power that they didn't have as children. So I was telling her that we try to do power with, saying that their kids are just as equal as we are, and we can work with them to find solutions and only step in when we have to protect them because we are older and wiser. I know you talk about that a lot in your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I talk about the loving alpha because I actually do believe that there is a growth hierarchy that needs to be there. But it needs to be the one that's really holding with the massive amounts of awareness that we're not there to further our agenda. We're
Mm-hmm.
there to hold them to grow into these adults, and that that's where the growth hierarchy comes in. That's where the loving alpha comes in, where it's not about power from my ego, but there is some need for us to hold boundaries with them, for us to create safety for them, to keep them safe in some instances. That's another example, though. I have seen people use safety so much in the drama triangle, like parents, when it comes to like sports, like coaches and parents often imposing their heroing over their kids, and basically saying like, it's because it's not safe, that's not safe to do. And it's not real, it's still stuck in the drama triangle. It's not really coming in from the place of like, well, what do you think? Do you think your body is, are you ready to do that? Like when you climb up on there, do you feel safe? And then they're like, no, I actually don't feel as safe. Would you hold my hand? How do you come into a relationship with the person that you're with, and only step into the role where you need to be? I don't even think it's a hero. This is the thing. That's the thing, that like this role as like the loving alpha is not a hero role.
Well, I was just thinking when you said that like you really kind of take all the healthy angles. So you become the coach, you become the challenger, the limit holder, and you become the creator, and you really just step into the healthy aspects of all three of those, I think.
I like that. That's really good. That's a really helpful thing. So basically it's saying that's where oh God, it reminds me of something with my husband, that when I was in the place of feeling like a victim in my marriage and then becoming the persecutor, becoming the villain, I would sometimes, I knew that I would use my words to hurt him. I knew that I had power to use my words and to be a fast talking, fast thinking, and just come in and not be caring about his experience.
Yeah.
And that I did have to become this person who challenged myself. And as you said, like I had to start thinking about things and saying, well, what's his experience with this? Like if he's not ready to talk about this, but I am ready to talk about it, and I just come in fast talking and he hasn't had a chance, like I'm being a bully. And I don't want to be a bully. So it really does require us to look at the roles that are comfortable and why they're comfortable for us, and see, how do they hurt other people? How do other people get impacted by when we are in any one of those roles?
Oh. And I think the hardest one to see where we hurt people, or at least for me, a huge mindset shift I had to make was from the hero rescuer role. And mostly it took learning that fixing it for people prevented them from growing. And that every time I took responsibility and helped them and solved it for them, it kept them where they were. And while it was painful for me in a lot of ways to make them go through that growth, specifically talking about my husband, it was painful at times, but it had to be done or nothing was going to change. Just like I would expect him to not save me and allow me to go through the growth that I needed. So that's the hardest one. And I think that's the one I see parents do all the time, who save their teenagers and now they have young adults who are just ill-equipped to solve things because they're so used to somebody being there. And then what I see is if they're boys, that they tend to look for women who are eager to save them. And then like I was, and then it just keeps going.
Right. But what you're saying that I think is one of the most important things that you and I have talked about a lot of times is that the thing about it is, a lot of people know this, like they'll understand the drama triangle and they'll be like, that's so cool. And they'll be able to point out drama triangle stuff in all other people. But the real work is in you changing and acknowledging and honoring that you have an impulse to go in and fix, but actually deciding not to do it.
Yeah.
That's like, and I know I had to do that too. And it was the only way my marriage was going to change, was when I stopped going in and heroing and believing that I was a martyr. Like I was like the martyr of like, well, he's not going to do it, so I'm going to do it. And then it was when I stopped that it's really treating people like adults. It's really just treating people like adults, and even your kids, like believing that your kids have far more ability to do what they basically to take care of themselves. And we're always like in there mucking around in their lives, but it's like, no, actually, if you just give them a moment, they're going to figure out how to wash that pan. It's,
Yeah.
it's okay at their level. Like, you can let them figure it out.
I'm right in that stage right now. I was just thinking the other day, I always wash my daughter's hair. She just turned 6. And it just dawned on me like, oh, she should probably learn how to do that. Like I've been thinking I still needed to do that and not letting go of that role as, a young child's mother. Like, she needs to learn how to do this now. It's a thing. And
Yeah.
just
Well,
let
it
them
sounds
do
like it's perfect timing, because I think that's when it happens. When it's the right time.
it.
Like, my kids, like, I would do things for them, and then it was just like that. One day I would be like, "Whoa, do I need to do that for them anymore?" And then that would be the day that we would change it,
Oh,
and a lot of times I think the kids are feeling it too. It's like the right time for everybody. But I think if we take this out of the parent-child place and we look at it with adults, it truly is an honoring and an acknowledgement that you're whole, you're good enough. I do not need to do for you. I'm not somehow better than you, and I need to take care of you.
yes.
And you're right. I think that can grow into, that's what, many of us became because of roles in our families of origin, men and women, their different family roles. But one part that you said, I think another one to bring attention to. So the hero and rescuer one, for me, that's my go-to one for sure. And that is for sure was the hardest one to break. And I think that's probably why both of us are coaches,
Yeah, I'm
you know?
sure.
Right, right. And that's not lost on me.
Mhm.
And but I think that the victim one's another one that's hard for people to figure out, because when I think about the victim one, there's a way that the energy of being a victim believes everyone's doing something to us. We're not the problem. I'm not the problem. I'm just a victim.
Mhm.
And so it's really hard for a victim or a person in the victim mentality to come out of that and step into the belief that they can create their lives, that they actually have more power than they think. Have you seen that? Like, where people who tend toward, that's, what did you say that it was called? Your go-to one. What did you say that's called? Your
The starting gate.
starting gate. So for a
Mhm.
person who's got the victim starting gate, from your experience just observing humans, what are your thoughts on how does a person break free from that role?
Mm. That's a good question. I feel like this is one that came more easily to me for some reason, but I'm trying to think. So I know somebody who feels like a victim at their work a lot and is always complaining about what's happening there. And I think one of the things I've talked to them about that's helped is to remember, okay, well, how can you solve this? Like I said, how can you become a creator here and turn this into something you want? Or if you don't really like what you're doing, what do you need to do to move into something that you do like doing that uses your skills better to make it better? And so that's a hard one for me to watch while they grow, because I feel like I just get it. You have the power. You can do this differently. But for me, I think one of the things that helped me was I used to get so mad at my husband because he didn't want to move somewhere warmer. And I realized one day that it really wasn't up to him where we moved necessarily. And that if I wanted to change it, I could just start making the small changes in my life that could lead to potentially moving somewhere warmer someday. And I wasn't at his mercy, but I was feeling that way because of like finances and stuff. And that how could I make more money? How could I find a job that moved me somewhere south? And then ultimately, what was I really avoiding by trying to move somewhere south, which was part of it. But I also like the sunshine. So there's like two things there. But but just really understanding, okay, let's look at this from a different place. What can I start doing to make this different from what I'm experiencing right now?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. And I also think it's still one of the hardest ones to bump out of. I'm pretty convinced that the victim
Mhm.
genuinely believes that they are truly victimized and that
Yeah.
there's nothing they can do because there are people oppressing or abusing or heroing or whatever, and everybody's out there trying to do that, and here I am, woe is me, I'm just little old me that can't do anything. And so, I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree with the path. And I also think it's a harder one to become aware of. Like, I always felt like, heroing, you can eventually you hear people say things to you like, well, I don't really need advice. Can you just listen to me? And you can see that people don't always want to be fixed. And
Yeah.
and certainly being a persecutor or a villain, you get feedback from people like that hurt. I didn't like that. That was too much. I don't like the way you treated me. But the villain is sort of, it's like they might not get the message as much. They might not get as much feedback from the outside world.
The victim.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the victim. Yeah, the victim. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of talked about this last night. I think people in those situations get the message from the outside world that they're victims over and over again. And so it's hard to look at their situation any differently. Just for me, one of them is feminism and feeling like women are oppressed. And I really felt like that for a long time. But then also seeing where we aren't and also seeing where we can change things. It's a tricky one because it's so much easier to get caught into what everybody else is thinking and saying. And if they're telling us that we're victims, then it's way easier to feel that way.
Yeah, so there's a lot of validation in the world. So that's one of the other parts of the drama triangle, is to be able to see where we are conditioned to believe that there are these three pieces and that we are one of them. And so there's a drama triangle that's happening in the larger landscape of the world. There's a drama triangle that's happening in relationships, in like one-on-one relationships. And there's a drama triangle that happens within our hearts,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know?
One of the other things that I was just thinking of, it's in all of us. Also, okay, so two things. So number one, everything you're sold is usually sold to you. Like if you're sold a product or something commercially, marketing presents a villain to you that you have to overcome. They're
Mm,
the hero. You know this. If you read Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand, he teaches you how to do this. The company is the hero that's going to help. Well, actually, the company is guiding you, the hero, to defeat the villain. But an interesting point that that book makes is that the villain is the dark side of the hero. So
mm,
what we see in every villain, and that was something I had to learn to change my marriage, was that everything I judged in my husband was also in me or something to do with me. And that's how I get out of it. And I know that you are all about that. So that's another key thing, that when we feel like we're the victim, when we judge our oppressor, what are they doing that we also do? And even like you just said, internally in our relationships and in the world. Sure.
so amazing, and it's so helpful, because I think that that's one of the things that it's a very hard thing for people to fully see, that it's playing out in marketing, it's playing out in politics, it's playing out in interpersonal relationships, it's playing out in the workplace, it's playing out everywhere. So it's like so easy to believe that that's what real life is, that's what there's no other choice but to play in one of those fields, one of those three roles. And so elevating yourself out of that and saying, actually, no, I'm going to be in a pyramid instead of a triangle. And the top of the pyramid is me saying, I'm coming into presence, and I'm going to actually look at the bigger picture. I'm going to look at the people who feel that they need to play the role of persecutor, victim, and villain. And I'm going to see that every one of those people has a heart. Every one of those people has their trauma and their own experience and their own pain. And I'm not going to go align myself with one of those. I'm actually going to love all of them. I'm going to be able to see that every one of them matters and each one of their experience matters, and because I think that's the problem we have right now, is that people believe that the only way we can live is a zero-sum game, winners and losers, perpetrators and victims, and oppressors and the oppressed. And it's this idea that and then everyone's waiting around for daddy, the hero, to come in and save us all. And it's to me, it's like, no, this is why the inside out activism idea is that you, at the end of the day, if you really want to have a great, fulfilling life, you have to start inside. You have to get the courage and the strength to say, I don't want to live that way anymore in my own heart. And then I don't want to live that way anymore in my marriage. And you start to make those minor little changes. They're massive changes, but they're so tiny. It's like the tiniest thing to say, okay, instead of fixing today, you're not going to fix, but it's huge for us. You and I both know. And, I'm on my soapbox about it, but it's like, it's really what I feel for people is that if we wait around for our marketing professionals to stop the drama triangle, or politicians to stop the drama triangle, it's not going to happen. It has to start inside of us and in our homes. And as you said, it has to start by us saying, we're not going to put our children in the drama triangle. We're not going to set up structures within our home that perpetuate the myth that the only way to live is in a drama triangle.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And what you just said about being the pyramid and rising above it and being present, that's really the key to parenting. Can we rise above all the drama and really just work on solutions and having empathy for our children? And like you said, compassion for ourselves. You're so right. That's exactly what we need to do. And nobody's out there to save us. We have all the power to create what we want right now.
We really do.
Absolutely do. I know it doesn't feel like it, but when we stop bringing, like you just said, when we stop bringing that into our own homes, then we'll stop seeing it out in our world.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the longer term vision, which a lot of people want a short term fix. They want to, they want a leader of a company to just stop doing that to people. And if they would stop treating people that way, but they're not aware that everybody's playing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you can't change the employees are playing in the game, whether it's like, they're the victim or whatever they are, they're playing in the game. So it can't change until it changes within each of us. And I do believe that the family change is critical. It probably won't change in mine in your lifetime because of that. So we have to take a much longer view.
Yeah.
But I care about the world that exists for my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and subsequent children. Things don't change like that. They don't. As much as people would like to see that happen, it's just not the way change happens. And so I'm willing to do it for the long haul. I'm willing to do this in my family and hopefully my children and theirs as well.
That's beautiful. Well, things don't change like that in the big picture, but like you just shared, they can change in our home overnight. Absolutely. When we step out of this.
Thank you for saying that. That's such a great point, because and then the beauty, like I said, if we could, how they do like the meditations where it's like, we're going to get 1 million people to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so imagine if we could get 1 million people to make a commitment to step out of the drama triangle for a week,
Yeah.
And we just said, everyone's going to do that for a week. Imagine the shifts we could make in the world. And I know it's not that easy. Like, I know that shifting out of the drama triangle it can be a process. I know for me, underneath each one of these roles, underneath each one is some form of trauma, some form of conditioning that, you know, we learned that that's the only way. Like you said, our ego defense mechanisms come in there and they're like, this is the way that you're going to be. Look at, I have
You're
squirrels
the
running
busiest squirrels.
across back there. Like I saw them before, but then I'm like seeing them again. That's so funny. But yeah, hello squirrels. So, but I mean, imagine if we did that. Imagine the change we would make. It'd be
Well,
epic.
let's do it. We should have a hashtag, no drama, and everybody even just become aware of when you step onto the role, because like you just said, we have trauma to heal to actually get off those, but even just become aware and have the integrity to say, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm going to get into his or her world and we're going to solve this as an adult, you know, from an adult place. And I'm going to go deal with this trauma with my coach or therapist or a good journal later. Just be aware.
Absolutely. I think it's a great invitation for people. So let's consider that to be the invitation for the listeners, is
Yes.
to do that for yourselves and to invite other people and ask other people to listen to this and understand Drama Triangle. Also, my friend Juna Mistad, I linked hers in the curated links, her description of it. That's actually when I first learned about Drama Triangle, I think was from her. And one of the things she asks, and I'll leave this question, is what is it when you step into the drama triangle? What is it that you are avoiding?
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you
Good one.
don't want to face, you know, and what feelings don't you want to experience? Yeah, ugh, like all the stuff we don't
Yuck.
want to look at. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, awesome. You know, Beth, this has been so fun, as I expected it would be. Thank you so much for coming on today. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's so great. And for all of those listening, if you enjoyed this, please like it and share it with a friend. Drop a comment in if you want to talk. Look at the squirrels if you want to look at them. I
Beautiful.
can't believe how many there are. And please also click subscribe if you want to get more of these videos. And if you click the bell, you'll get an email notification as well. So thank you, everybody. It's been great.
Yes.